Our first topic with the West is mining in the West. I start with this because this was the first thing that really got a lot of people moving to the West. So, the first major gold rush in American history in the West occurred in California. It was the most famous one. It was the first one, the California Gold Rush of 1849. And once gold was discovered there, one thing I want you to remember is this wasn't just an American gold rush. There were people coming from all over the world. A lot of Europeans came over. A lot of Chinese came over. Even people as far away as Australia were coming over to participate in this gold rush. They often referred to it as gold fever. So the first obstacle you had is you had to get to California. Most people, Americans, are living on the East Coast. So you had a couple different options, none which were great. We talked about these earlier in the year. Option number one, if I remember right, it's about 19,000 miles to take a boat all the way down around South America up the Pacific side to San Francisco. And then you would be within a couple hundred miles of the gold fields. If you're feeling really adventurous, you can go to New York, go through the Caribbean, and then go into Central America and cross across Nicaragua. It's about 150 miles of jungle. Get to the other side, get on another boat, go up there. Or option three is the Oregon-California Trail. It's not showing it on this map, but where my cursor is, there was somewhere in here in Idaho, I believe, there was a trail that headed down to California. And we spoke about the Oregon Trail a lot. 4 to 6 months. A good day was about 15 miles total, and it was 2,000 miles total. So you got yourself out to California for the gold rush. One thing before we look at what life was like. Once gold was discovered in the West, it wasn't just California, and it wasn't always gold. For instance, I put this up here. This was known as the Comstock Lode. It was about 10 years later. It was near California, just on the other side of the mountains in Nevada, and this was actually one of the biggest mines ever. And most of the minerals that were coming out of the Comstock Lode were silver. Over $1 billion worth of silver came out of this one mine. Gold always gets the glory because gold has the most value. But they were mining silver, they were mining lead, copper, other things like that. And I'll show you on a map. It's not just a California and Nevada thing. It's an all over the West thing. So pretty much everything west of here, there were either gold or silver mines all over the place. So this was somewhat of the cycle of a gold rush. Started with the boom town. So someone would discover gold. Instantly, word would get out. People would show up to where gold was discovered. And the miners need stuff. So these little towns would start growing very, very quickly. They called them boom towns because they came up so quick. And the boom towns had things like restaurants, hotels, a general store, saloons. Miners came out there. They needed these things to survive. And honestly, if you wanted to make money during the gold rush, you had a better chance of making money by opening up one of these businesses in the boom towns. Most miners never found gold. One of the biggest examples is Virginia City. It was near that mine I just told you about. At one point, there were 20,000 people living in Virginia City, Nevada, and it was actually the second biggest city in the West. As mentioned, lots of immigrants were coming over: Irish, Italians, Germans, Chinese, Australians. A lot of discrimination. We'll talk about this later in the year against immigrant groups, especially the Chinese. And these towns were absolutely wild. I put up there, Wild, Wild West, little law and order. The boom towns were popping up so quick. They didn't have things like courts or sheriffs or police or jails. So it truly was the Wild, Wild West. There was a lot of crime. There was a lot of violence. And it was a dangerous place to live in a boom town. You were talking about most of the people are men in their 20s, and these are rough people. A lot of times, people got sick of this, all the crime and disorder, so they began to form what were known as vigilante groups. Vigilantes are self-appointed lawmakers. These are people that get sick and tired of not having law and order in the crime and the violence, so they take it upon themselves, and they're like, I'm going to be the lawmaker. No one asked them to do this. They're not elected or appointed. They do this themselves. You guys actually, well, I'll show you a picture in just a second. This was from the textbook. It says a vigilante might arrest, try, convict, and hang a murderer all in the same day. You guys are actually very, very familiar with vigilantes because Marvel and DC Comics, most of their stories are about vigilantes. If you take Batman, for instance, probably the most well-known, no one told Batman to go out and fight crime in Gotham City. He wasn't elected. He wasn't a member of the police force. He just took it upon himself to go out and fight the Joker and the Riddler and all the bad guys in the Batman movies. Please don't think that in the Wild West in these boomtowns people were dressed up like him, because they weren't. So the boomtowns, a lot of them were very short-lived. So people show up, they're mining, a town grows up very, very quickly, and then all the gold and silver runs out, and then they're gone because there's nothing left to do, and the boomtown suddenly becomes a ghost town. Everyone moves out, and they go to the next place where gold or silver has been discovered. This is a picture showing you dueling guns. These are both pistols, and they would sell them 2 at a time. Back then, they sold their differences with the duel, and it's kind of like we see in the movies or TV. Each guy has a pistol. They start back to back. They take 8 to 10 paces. They turn around, and they shoot at one another to settle disputes. This is what mining looked like. It was a lot of work. It was physically exhausting. They would use shovels and pickaxe. They would build a little trough, and water would flow down it. And then they would take, these 2 guys have gold pans, and they would sift through with the gold pan to find the little nuggets of gold, if they were lucky. Reality was most people ended up like this. You'll notice the difference here. These guys are underground. So most miners come out, they don't find gold, they run out of money. Now they need work. So they end up working for companies, big mining companies. And the mining companies have enough men and tools and later machinery to search for gold and silver underground. And this is where the huge pockets of gold and silver were found. So now these guys are still miners, but they work for the company. So any gold that is found goes to the company, and they're getting